Battle through the heavens, grand world. Chapter 180, A Show of Strength. Fire Heavenly Core. Xiao Yan was slightly stunned when he heard this, then he laughed lightly and said, "You guys hunted spirit beasts to obtain fire element heavenly cores, right?" Xiao Yan casually flipped his hand when he saw the old man nod his head. A crystal clear crimson-colored heavenly core had already appeared in his hand. The moment the heavenly core appeared, the surrounding origin monarch key began to surge wildly, forming numerous whirlpools that surrounded it. Heavenly core. Seeing the item that Xiao Yan took out, the old man was startled, and a greedy look flashed across his eyes. However, when he thought of his current situation, he could only let out a helpless sigh, and shook his head without saying anything. This red heavenly core was none other than a few heavenly cores. A year ago, he accidentally killed a crimson fire flame wolf in a cave in the forest domain. To be more precise, it was killed by the fire dragon's incarnation when the Xiaoao was still alive. When he was selling crimson fire flame wolves in the Falling Rock City, he thought about the 5 Falling Rock cities that the Holy Rank trial needed, so he didn't think about selling them. The only thing missing is the fire heavenly core. Xiao Yan smiled lightly and looked at the ring on the old man's right finger. Without any hesitation, he snatched it away. Under the old man's ashen face, Xiao Yan's soul force rushed in and broke through the soul barrier inside the storage ring. The moment the soul barrier broke, the pale face of the old man suddenly flushed with a strange red color. In the next moment, blood began to flow out of his eyes, nose, and mouth, and he was on his last breath. An emperor should have a lot of wealth. Furthermore, this old man was the second commander of the Black Scale mercenary group. Xiao Yan would never believe that he could survive in this chaotic place until now without some wealth. After breaking through the soul barrier set up by the old man, Xiao Yan's soul energy entered the barrier unimpeded. The first thing that appeared in his mind was a large pile of dazzling spirit cores. After scanning his soul roughly, Xiao Yan was slightly startled. There were actually over 100 spirit cores here. Although most of them were some low-grade spirit cores. But so much is enough to sell for some money. Beside the spirit cores, there was a small pile of monarch crystals. There were only a few tens of thousands of monarch crystals, and underneath the monarch crystals were a few golden Xiao Yan's cards. These were the things Xiao Yan was most interested in. Under the powerful soul force, the number of monarch crystals on the monarch crystal cards quickly appeared in Xiao Yan's mind. Nearly 1.5 million. Such a huge number also made the former overjoyed. The other parts of the storage ring were some enormous spirit beast corpses. Xiao Yan carefully observed them and found that they were basically some tough leather spirit beasts that possessed a horn that could be used for medicine. It seemed that these people had exhausted all their efforts in order to gather enough money to purchase the heavenly cores. There were only a few monarch spell items left. Xiao Yan casually flipped through them a couple of times without any interest. He threw them aside and withdrew his spiritual strength from them. At the same time, the monarch spell appeared in Xiao Yan's hand. Under the old man's pained gaze, Xiao Yan kept them into his own storage ring. Oh right, how many powers know about this emperor cultivation treasure? Also, since you have decided to join forces, why don't you join forces to buy it? I don't believe that a few monarch emperor can't afford 5 heavenly cores. While he was at it, he put the old man's storage ring into his clothes. Xiao Yan suddenly looked at the old man and said in a cold voice. The old man was stunned for a moment, then he let out a bitter laugh. The pain in his body made him grimace in pain. After a long time, he said weakly, "As far as I know, there are a total of 3 forces, the Black Scale mercenary group, the Lord of Black Sand Castle and the Lao family of Black Sand Castle." The 3 forces only had 4 monarch emperor level experts. After some discussion, we also promised to hire a monarch emperor from another castle, provided that the emperor cultivation treasure has nothing to do with him. After that, we spent a large sum of money to buy heavenly cores. In order to not attract the attention of the experts in the other castles, we practically ran all over the star-severing mountain range, and only managed to buy 4 heavenly cores. We spent nearly 10 million monarch crystals, and during this period, we also discussed how to kill the heavenly beast. However, the heavenly beast in the star-severing mountain range was much more ferocious than other places. In addition, they had a lot of spirit beasts under their control, so they had never succeeded. Xiao Yan nodded his head in satisfaction when he heard this. He smiled at the old man. He reached out his right hand with lightning speed and struck the old man's heart. The old man's facial expression changed, and his chest caved in. Blood mixed with fragments of internal organs sprayed out. At the same time, there was an extremely tiny snake on his arm that was almost the same color as his arm. Without the support of the old man's origin monarch key, his body gradually stiffened after struggling for a while. Standing up, he coldly glanced at the dead old man. In this chaotic region, no matter what, one must always be careful. This principle was deeply engraved in Xiao Yan's bones. In this place, only cruelty and ruthlessness were the king's path, and it was also the foundation for survival. After calling out to the Xiao, the latter happily ran over. This time around, he had enjoyed himself to his heart's content in this battle. It also caused him to be extremely excited. The flames on his body also began to beat intensely because of his excitement. Xiao Yan rested for a moment here. When the pain in his body had reduced by 1, he identified the direction of the black sand castle that the old man was talking about. He turned around, mounted the Xiao, and patted the latter's huge head. The Xiao shook its head, and with a movement of its 4 hooves, it ran like a meteor flame that streaked across the sky. In an instant, it left behind a trail of dust and dust. The black sand castle was located in a green area. As the only human gathering place within a 1,000-mile radius, it could be said to be quite prosperous. The defensive barrier made of wood and stone had been damaged and strengthened for hundreds of years, and it had long become the most solid facility in the Black Sand Castle. There were several arrow towers in front of the city walls of the Black Sand Castle. The iron spears that could pierce through ordinary sovereign masters were aimed at the outside of the fortress like arrows. Not only did they defend against the sudden attack of the spirit beast, but they were also used to deal with the unpredictable bandits in the star-severing mountain range. At this moment, it was a leisure time. The few guards in charge of sentry duty on the archery tower were also sitting listlessly. Just as everyone was yawning and waiting for their shift to change, a guard inadvertently looked into the distance and could not help but exclaim in surprise. In the distance, a black-clothed youth was walking towards Black Sand Castle alone. This is really strange. In the past, it was either merchant caravans or groups of mercenaries that came. This time, there is actually another person who came. Looking at the figure in the distance, the castle guard who saw it first sneered. One person. Look carefully, are they from the Lao family? A rough-looking middle-aged man who was lying on a chair in the archery tower suddenly became interested and sat up. Are you wearing black clothes, not Lao family's home clothes? The guard looked carefully and confirmed without a doubt. How dare you come alone? I don't think you're from another castle. You might be a new kid. Brothers, let's go down and teach this guy some manners. We can also ask him to pay some tuition fees. The boorish middle-aged man was immediately overjoyed when he heard this. Then, he stood up and sneered. The 5 castle guards in the archery tower were all beaming with joy when they heard this. It was too depressing to be idle here all day. It was also a very fun activity to be able to go out and teach new students. He-san, you've only been here for a few months. Just watch from above, the middle-aged man said to a young man who looked a little immature among the 5 of them. Then, the middle-aged man led the 4 middle-aged castle guards down the archery tower. The young man named He-san was only dissatisfied, but he didn't dare to say anything. He glanced at Xiao Yan, who was walking closer, and saw the young face of the latter. He snorted disdainfully and mumbled to himself, such a guy. It's not easy to scare him. He looked at the Black Sand Castle not far away. Xiao Yan finally let out a soft sigh. After traveling for over 1,000 miles without stopping for nearly half a day, he finally appeared in front of them. While Xiao Yan was observing the Black Sand Castle, he saw an arrow tower in front of the castle. A rugged-looking middle-aged man with a smile on his face and 4 robust men walked down. They lined up in a row and blocked Xiao Yan's path. Is this a show of strength? Seeing their movements, Xiao Yan secretly sneered and continued to walk forward without any hesitation. Chapter end. Hi guys, please like, comment, share, and subscribe.